I'm sharing this precisely because I came to believe in this manner. And I would like to hear from you what you think of this. Because I'm not a lawyer, I don't practice politics, I'm not even a social activist. You know, at best, like Narendra said, I write for some newspapers, or I do write occasionally for some newspapers. And I do think on these issues because these are all affecting things happening around us. So one of my starting points, and which is why I think I'm saying this, otherwise I would have made this presentation very differently 10 years ago. I could talk about the constitutional evolution of this whole issue. I could talk about the specific aspects of land acquisition itself in the last 100 years. Because some of my friends, including my wife, have looked into this issue in much greater detail than I have. But I wanted to first share with you how I came to this conclusion, that recognizing property right is precisely a way to resolve some of the conflicts that we see all around us. And the conflicts today are not a consequence of any particular set of policies. The scale of the conflict is much more visible today because 24-hour news channel can tell you what happened in Pune or what happened in Bhattaparsal. You know, by the evening, the Human Rights Commission is aware of what's happening. And the whole country. But that was not the case at 20 years ago. That was not the case 40 years ago. It didn't mean it didn't happen. 40 million people did get displaced. Virtually all the dams involved from Hirakud to Bhadra involved a huge number of displacements. In fact, some of my friends working in Odisha go and tell me that the outseas of the Hirakud dam has still not been rehabilitated 40 years after the dam was built. Okay? So these were not for any particular set of policies. These were a consequence of a particular set of institutions that evolved in that particular place and time. So how I came to realize this was, you know, that the more I read history, because I loved it. And I think history is something all of us can learn from for the simple reason that if we don't learn from history, we are likely to repeat some of the tragedies of history one more time. And as a famous saying goes, you know, when history repeats, it's usually a farce. And in our context, it can be a real tragedy. It can be a real tragedy. We are a large country, we are a diverse country. If we don't learn from our own history and history of the past. In fact, in this, there is a paper which was published by a professor in Jaipur in 1985, which looks at the historical background of property right in India, A.L. Gandhi. That's one of the first books that I found was looking at, and this author is actually a socialist. He says that, so I'm not saying that. He says that he believes in socialism. I know so many people who do believe in socialism. Yet, when he wrote this, he said that how property rights was not alien to us, private property rights. Even from the time of Kautilya, the Arthashastra, it was recognized that people would have private property. And agricultural revolution that happened in the world 10,000 years ago would not have happened had people not been able to claim rights in a more narrow manner than communal rights. So this relationship to me was very fascinating the more I looked into it. You know, this is the general facts, you know, like most of us are, did I go the right way? You know, like we have seen the protests, we have seen the displacement. We know, for instance, these two, you know, there's an enormous distortion. This morning I was discussing with Mr. Reddy that this enormous distortion in prices. It's a huge amount of corruption. A friend of mine and I, we just wrote a paper last month where we estimate that the amount of black money or corrupt money that is generated each year in India on account of just land deals can be 1 to 2% of GDP, which is much, much more than any money that Anna Hazare and Baba Ramdev might find in Pakistan. Because black money is not what you have in the bank. Black money is a system which generates it day in, day out, year in, year out. So no amount of targeting Swiss banks are going to solve our problem at home, which is land deals typically involve an element of corruption and an element of tax evasion, and together they can be at least 1 to 2% in places like Delhi and Gurgaon. Our estimate was it could be as high as 25% of GDP of that area of NCR is coming from black money generated or tax evaded from land. Land deals include, not just land as such, but house and property and apartments and everything, but related to physical property. 25% of the domestic product generated in the NCR region comes potentially from this source. This is an enormous money. And why is it being generated, which we hope we'll discuss in more detail in some of the laws that we discuss. Now, just to make, there's something that hasn't